contains spoilers for the Coronation Street episode that airs on Monday at 8:30 p.m. on ITV1 and is currently available for streaming on ITVX. Fans of Swarla rejoice. After evil Becky Swain, Amy Cudden, is defeated, Carla Connor, Allison King, and Lisa Swain, Vicky Myers, may finally have their happily ever after on Coronation Street. When Lisa's envious and resentful dead Becky returned to Manchester after years of hiding in Spain under a witness protection program, the two were engaged and had purchased a house together. She appeared to be willing to do whatever it took to get her ex-wife back, even if it meant holding Carla captive in an airing cupboard in an abandoned apartment. Lisa ultimately consented to go away with Becky and their daughter Betsy, Sydney Martin, thinking that she was on vacation. But everything began to fall apart in the Emmerdale crossover episode. After Kit Green, Jacob Roberts, discovered Carla restrained at a shipping counter, the two hurried to Hull to prevent the family from departing. Lisa nearly died, there was a multi-vehicle collision, and Becky planned to escape. But when she bid her sweetheart farewell with a kiss, Lisa put shackles on her wrist and was ultimately taken into custody. While incarcerated last week, Becky explained how she intended to pull Lisa down with her. But in today's episode, Betsy's scathing remarks made her realize how wrong her actions were. When she was visiting her mother, she reminded her that she was accountable for much more than just her previous behavior. Betsy's lover, Mason, died as a result of her seeming demise. He got into a fight with his brothers, who fatally stabbed him, because he was determined to find out what had happened. Consequently, Betsy informed her mother that she wished she had died instead of Mason. Lisa then went to work to get an update on Becky's case after her plea hearing, when she was given a 12-year prison term. She also doesn't appear to be going to have an easy time at His Majesty's pleasure. She stared at a photo of Betsy on the wall while other prisoners made fun of her for being a former copper. Is this Becky's final appearance? The constant, detailed narrative of British soap operas like Coronation Street might seem odd to American viewers used to the glossy, seasonal storylines of network dramas. Sometimes, however, a plotline breaks through with such unadulterated psychological intensity and narrative boldness that it surpasses its source. It turns into a worldwide conversation about water coolers. One such tale is the epic tale of Lisa Swain, Vicky Myers, Carla Connor, Allison King, and the vindictive Becky Swain, Amy Cudden. More than a soap opera cliffhanger, what aired on ITV1 as an engrossing story of obsession, false death, and hard-won justice is a dark mirror reflecting current concerns about trauma, coercive control, and the long shadow of witness protection failures, themes that resonate powerfully on both sides of the Atlantic. A crazed plot involving an airing cupboard hostage situation, a dramatic crossover chase with Emmerdale's Kit Green, Jacob Roberts, a multi-vehicle pileup, the hopeful engagement of Carla and Lisa, the shocking return of Lisa's allegedly dead ex-wife Becky, and a final cathartic arrest via handcuff kiss were all expertly crafted on-screen beats. The next jail scenes, in which Becky is faced with the terrible consequences of her lives, her daughter Betsy, Sydney Martin, accusing her of being responsible for her lover Mason's death, provided a devastating emotional punctuation mark. Becky Swain appeared to meet a reasonable, if tragic, end while serving a 12-year sentence and being teased by other prisoners.
The cultural weight of this storyline lies not just in its execution, but in its unsettling echoes of real-world patterns. This is where the talents of Allison King, Vicky Myers, Amy Cudden, and Jacob Roberts converge, not just as performers in a fiction, but as vessels for a societal conversation about the monsters we create and the fragile sanctuaries we build to survive them. Allison King's portrayal of Carla Connor is the bedrock of this storyline. Carla is not a naive ingenue. She is a businesswoman with a history of mental health struggles, addiction, and profound loss. She is a survivor in every sense. King brings a fierce, wounded intelligence to the role, making Carla's decision to trust and love again after so much pain a monumental act of courage. When Becky Swain targets Carla, it's not just an attack on Lisa's new partner, it's an assault on the very concept of recovery. The image of Carla, a powerhouse, bound and trapped in a claustrophobic airing cupboard, is a visceral metaphor for how past traumas and present psychopaths can seek to re-cage those who have fought for their freedom. For an American audience, Carla Connor resonates with characters like Alicia Florrick from The Good Wife or Olivia Benson from Law & Order SVU, women whose professional strength is constantly tested by personal violation. Allison King's performance grounds the outlandish circumstances in palpable fear and grit. Her chemistry with Vicky Myers sells the Swarla relationship as a mature, grounding force, a safe harbor that the storm of Becky is determined to destroy. King's ability to oscillate between boardroom steel and vulnerable terror is what makes the threat feel real, transforming a soap villain into a legitimate nightmare. Vicky Myers as Lisa Swain represents a fascinating duality, the police officer as victim. Lisa is a trained professional meant to uphold order, yet her greatest chaos comes from her personal past. This subversion of the protector archetype is deeply compelling. Lisa's initial belief that Carla was on holiday, her manipulated decision to flee with Becky and Betsy, illustrates a brutal truth. Emotional manipulation can bypass even professional training. Myers plays this conflict with a heartbreaking quietness, the detective's analytical mind warring with the ex-partner's guilt and confused loyalty. The climax of the storyline, where Lisa snaps the handcuffs on Becky mid-kiss, is an iconic moment of reclamation. It is the moment the officer reasserts herself over the victim. It's a gesture that speaks to millions who have had to professionally or personally re-armor themselves against an abuser. Vicky Myers delivers this not with a triumphant shout, but with a steely, devastated resolve. It's the look of someone doing the necessary, heartbreaking thing. This complexity makes Lisa not just a plot device, but a symbol of the difficult journey back to selfhood after profound betrayal. The triumph of this storyline, and of Amy Cudden's chilling performance, is that Becky Swain is never merely a pantomime villain. Yes, her actions are monstrous, faking her death, entering witness protection, returning to systematically destroy her ex-wife's life, taking Carla hostage, but the writing and Cudden's performance venture into the why, revealing the toxic fuel of obsessive love and narcissistic injury. Becky cannot bear that Lisa moved on. Her entire identity is tied to
Scenes are where
possession.
Amy Cudden and the writers achieve something extraordinary. Confronted by Betsy, Sidney Martin, Becky is forced to see the fractal consequences of her lies. Betsy's accusation that Becky's fabricated death indirectly led to Mason's murder is a devastating piece of dramatic causality. It moves the damage beyond the central couple and into the next generation. When Betsy says, "I wish it was you who died," it's not just a teenage lash-out, it's a moral verdict. Cudden, in this moment, lets the manipulative mask fully slip, revealing not remorse, but a stunned, hollow realization of her own irredeemability. The final shot of her gazing at Betsy's photo, being mocked as an ex-copper, suggests a punishment far beyond the 12-year sentence: eternal, loveless isolation. For U.S. viewers, Becky Swain joins the ranks of complex, hateful, yet pitiable antagonists like Gone Girl's Amy Dunn or the leads of Dead to Me, women whose pathology is explored with uncomfortable depth. The crossover element involving Emmerdale's Kit Green, Jacob Roberts, was more than a ratings gimmick. Jacob Roberts, with his innate decency and physical reliability, served as the perfect narrative catalyst. Kit is the outsider, the objective Good Samaritan whose actions propel the climax. His finding of Carla and the race to Hull functioned as the thrilling engine of the plot, but his presence also symbolically connected the pastoral community of Emmerdale to the urban grit of Weatherfield, suggesting that such darkness can erupt anywhere. Roberts provided the action hero pulse that gave the storyline its cinematic escape velocity. Conversely, Sidney Martin as Betsy provided its emotional heart. The child caught in the crossfire is a classic trope, but Martin's performance gave it fresh agony. Betsy isn't a prop, she is a casualty who becomes the ultimate agent of justice. Her words in the visitation room are the key that finally locks Becky away psychologically. She represents the inconvenient, truthful voice of the next generation, holding the past accountable. Her grief from Mason is the tangible cost of Becky's games, making the storyline about more than a twisted romance. It's about intergenerational trauma. What makes the Swarla saga resonate so powerfully for a discerning U.S. audience is its underpinning in real, grim societal issues. The failure of systems. Becky Swain was in witness protection. Her ability to corrupt that system, escape it, and return with malicious intent taps into deep-seated fears about institutional failure. It's a storyline that asks what happens when the mechanisms designed to protect us become tools for a predator. This echoes real-life cases where protective programs have been compromised with deadly results. Coercive control as a narrative engine. The storyline is a textbook dramatization of coercive control, a pattern of intimidation, isolation, and manipulation used by abusers. Becky's entire plot is an extended act of control, isolating Lisa from Carla, manipulating her through their child, creating a false reality. Many U.S. states have recently criminalized coercive control, and seeing it depicted with such nuance on a mainstream platform is profoundly Notoriety. The last picture of Becky, alone with a picture and despised in prison, illustrates a contemporary fixation with poetic justice.
In a time of public schadenfreude and true crime films, her fate fulfills a societal desire to see the villain not just imprisoned, but also completely vanquished and alone. It raises the question of whether any punishment is sufficient to cause psychological harm. With the help of Kit Green, Jacob Roberts, and Betsy, Sidney Martin, the narrative of Carla Connor, Allison King, Lisa Swain, Vicki Myers, and Becky Swain, Amy Cudden, is a masterwork of serialized storytelling. It transformed the traditional soap opera cliches of hostage situations and back-from-the-dead scenarios into a contemporary thriller about trauma, justice, and resiliency. It is a powerful introduction to the world of British soap operas for American audiences, showing that their strength is in hyper-concentrated emotional reality rather than escape. All of the performances, King's resilient vulnerability, Myers' heartbreaking strength, Cudden's chilling believability, Roberts' dependable heroism, and Martin's awful honesty, are excellent. In the end, the episode provides two answers to the question, is this the last we've seen of Becky? On TV, probably. Her tale has come to a flawless, depressing end. However, figures like Becky Swain continue to exist in popular culture. They become into archetypes and points of reference for conversations about justice and obsession. Because it is more than just a storyline, the Swarla tale survives. It is a meditation, a cautionary tale, and ultimately a catharsis, a demonstration of the ability of storytelling to imprison our deepest anxieties in a narrative cell so that both the viewer and the survivors may at last let go. Our first analysis suggested that the Corriedale crossover, which revolved around the tattoo connecting Jodie, Olivia Frances Brown, and Shona Platt, Julia Golding, was the outward manifestation of a deeper narrative fault line associated with a real-life cult called the Weaving Light. The dramatic Swarla plot, which ended with Amy Cudden's character Becky Swain incarcerated, was handled as a distinct but excellent home thriller. This is a serious perceptual mistake. They are not distinct. They represent the two sides of a single dark coin. In the vast, tainted tapestry of the Weaving Light, Becky Swain is not an isolated monster, but rather a potential acolyte and a rogue thread. Think about the approach. The whole plan of Becky Swain, pretending to be dead, going into institutional hiding, witness protection, and coming back years later to reimpose her will on Lisa Swain, Vicki Myers, and ruin the new life she created with Carla Connor, Allison King, is more than just the actions of a betrayed lover. It's a sick routine. According to the Weaving Light's narrative destiny theory, a person's allotted tale is crucial. The ultimate heresy was to disobey it, as Lisa did by reweaving her life with a new love, Carla. Becky's behavior is similar to a lumen forcer, a hypothetical cult member whose job it is to use any means necessary to bring errant threads back into the pattern.
Time and symbolism provide the proof. The same air storm that enabled Jodie's escape and Graham Foster's, Andrew Scarborough's, collision also caused Becky's return and the multi-vehicle pileup on Connelton Road. This was a narrative convergence, rather than just a meteorological event for dramatic effect. Two corrective plots, Graham suppressing Jodie and Becky regaining Lisa, collided with the forces of resistance, Kit Green, Jacob Roberts, Carla Connor, Allison King, in the storm. Additionally, Becky Swain's proficiency in deceit, manipulation, and institutional subversion, corrupting witness protection, points to a background that goes beyond that of an irate ex-spouse. It suggests training in psychological warfare. Where could one learn these kinds of skills? In a cult that is fixated on dominating individual stories. If one considers Amy Cudden's portrayal of Becky, which is frequently praised for its almost academic precision and cruelty, as the performance of a skilled agent in a struggle over fate itself, it takes on a new significance. Examining the performers' careers and public personalities via this conspiratorial lens strengthens the linkages. For an audience enthralled with patterns, here is when the analysis becomes genuinely speculative. Both Julia Goulding, Shona Platt, and Allison King, Carla Connor, portray characters who have endured severe trauma, Carla's insanity, kidnappings, Shona's gunshot, amnesia, and who have physical scars that connect them to secret pasts, Shona's tattoo, Carla's psychological scars. According to our idea, they stand for two different kinds of chosen threads. Carla, the autonomous weaver, whose might threatens to create new, forbidden patterns, and Shona, the unintentional bearer of the cult's emblem. Notably, Goulding and King are both well known for their rigorous, grounded preparation. They frequently talk about carrying the weighty pasts of their characters off set. Are they just committed,
Or do they unconsciously convey the realities ingrained in the Yorkshire terrain that these performances originate from? Jacob Roberts, Kit Green, and Vicky Myers, Lisa Swain, they embody the protector archetype. As a former police officer, Myers makes use of state justice resources. As a veterinarian, Roberts employs natural healing methods. Lisa's handcuffs and Kit's rescue effort are two ways to stop the cult's mayhem in the Great Confrontation. Their performers are known for being the real-life anchors, stabilizing, compassionate figures on production. Their casting in our meta-narrative is a conscious attempt to surround the more spiritually fragile characters, Carla, Jody, Shona, with protecting, kind energy. The most captivating duo is Amy Cudden, Becky Swain, and Andrew Scarborough, Graham Foster. Both Cudden and Scarborough are skilled at creating physically formidable, ethically dubious, and intellectual characters whose violence is cerebral before it is physical. Graham and Becky are two sides of the same enforcer coin. One is driven by professional obligation to a secret hierarchy, while the other is driven by perverted love and possession. Their plots culminate simultaneously. Becky is defeated by the legal system and the conviction of her own child, while Graham is defeated by the natural world, the crash, and a guardian, Kit. Their losses are not coincidental. Rather, they serve as a metaphor for the two ways that the cult's power might be undermined, by unintentional involvement and by the overwhelming weight of a true legacy.
Martin,
Betsy's
Betsy,
words.
and Olivia Frances Brown, Jody, represent the younger generation. Brown's Jody is enigmatic, a possible child of the cult on the run, with symbolic marks all over her body. The youngster that is exploited as a pawn and ends up as the judge is Martin's Betsy. They stand for both the possibility of ending the cycle and the inherited trauma. Betsy confronts Jody as she runs away. The unanswered issues about their futures include whether Betsy will find peace after speaking her truth and whether Jody will be taken back by the past. ITV's choice to produce the Corriedale crossover was a huge creative and practical challenge. Ratings and event television are the official explanations. However, according to our deep dive theory, it fulfilled a deeper, possibly unconscious, function as a public rite of narrative purification. The creators symbolically forced a confrontation between the contemporary social urban life of the street and the pastoral old mysteries of the countryside, the likely genesis of the Weaving Light, by physically colliding the worlds of Emmerdale and Coronation Street on a dark, stormy road. There was a violent integration during the collision. These knotted threads were sorted in the purifying room known as Houghton General. The injured, Lisa Swain, was liberated from Becky's scheme by nearly dying and experiencing a symbolic death and rebirth. The seized, Becky Swain's disruptive spirit was actually seized and imprisoned. The liberated, Jody was taken out of Graham Foster's vehicle and placed in the hospital's light. The revealed, the process of revealing the secret pattern started when Jody and Shona's tattoo link was made public. The fresh life, Harper, the child of Shona and David, Jack P. Shepherd, was born, a fresh thread, untarnished by the past, named by an act of appreciation, the surgeon, not by fate. One may consider the casting and storyline to be a kind of sympathetic magic. The production ritually enacted the victory of community and truth over obsession and secrecy by having actors known for their decency, Jacob Roberts, Vicky Myers, Allison King, defeat Amy Cudden and Andrew Scarborough, the enforcers, and by having the mystery, Olivia Frances Brown, intersect with the established heart of the show, Julia Goulding, Jack P. Shepherd. This tiered analysis provides a fresh approach to interacting with international information for the American audience. It turns Emmerdale and Coronation Street from far-off soap operas into real-life folktales, a contemporary Yorkshire mythology unfolding in primetime. In a vast epic about pain versus healing, free choice versus fate, and the mysteries hidden in the land, the characters Carla, Lisa, Becky, Shona, David, Jody, Kit, and Graham become archetypes. Allison King, Vicky Myers, Amy Cudden, Julia Goulding, Jack P. Shepherd, Olivia Frances Brown, Jacob Roberts, Andrew Scarborough, and Sydney Martin are all more than just actors. According to this interpretation, they are modern storytellers expressing a very particular local consciousness that is haunted by ancient rituals, untamed landscapes, and the never-ending battle to create a respectable living in the face of gloomy skies. Is this the last we've seen of Becky? And who is Jody? Are not the last questions. The question then arises, have we, the viewers, just seen a long-kept secret finally come to light through the only media big enough and accessible enough to do so? The antiseptic light of Houghton General, the storms above Connelton, and the frantic pursuit to Hull are more than just sets and scenarios. These are the stages where the spotlight's brilliance is finally dispelling a shade that has existed for decades.
Additionally, they are not only acting when Julia Goulding gives Olivia Frances Brown a knowing look, Vicky Myers squares her shoulders as Lisa, or Allison King steals her jaw as Carla. One strand of truth at a time, they are creating a new tapestry.